welcome to the Next Generation series. My name is Kate Landis. Today we are going to be talking to Deborah Stephens. Deborah and I were counselors together at Interlochen Center for the Arts in 2017. She graduated from the University of Georgia with a bachelor's in vocal performance. She is currently getting her master's degree in early music, oratorio, and chamber ensembles at Yale. I really enjoyed this conversation and I learned a lot. So please join me in welcoming Deborah Stephens. Tell me about your musical journey and how did you get to where you are today?
Started very early for me. When I was 5 years old, my mom used to sing to me and record it back to me on her Walkman. And I just enjoyed doing that with her. And then at church, we had an entrepreneurship Sunday where it was a challenge to see which young entrepreneur could make the most money doing the most innovative thing. And I went around with a cup singing to people, and they could pick one of four songs, and I only wanted a quarter. But some people were nice and gave me like $1 or $2, and at the end of the day, I'd made like $8, which was huge for like a 7-year-old. And I ended up winning most innovative exhibit. And that kind of made me think, okay, maybe I'm a good singer. So fast forward to elementary school, I auditioned for choir. I was only in the third grade, and you had to be in the fifth grade to be in it, but I didn't know that, and I went to the auditions anyway, and they were like, "Oh wow, you're actually really good." So just kind of that cycle of validation that kept going, and I decided, okay, I want to do this. I've been super lucky. I've had supportive parents my entire life. They never once said, "A musician, like, oh, do something practical. We're not going to make any money." They believed in me the whole time. I never once heard that from them. So just kind of kept going, and we didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't actually get to take formal voice lessons until like a semester before I auditioned for voice performance at UGA. And once again, I got kind of lucky. The woman that I went to visit at UGA, my prospective professor, prospective voice teacher, really believed in me. She helped me make a better pre-screening video to
Okay.
send in because the one that I had was just a mess. Because, I didn't really have much formal training or anything to do, but she believed in my voice and I got in. Fast forward, I graduated from UGA with a bachelor's in voice performance in fall 2019. And now I'm at Yale getting a master's in voice performance, and it's just kind of worked out for me so far. Not that I haven't been working hard, but I do consider myself quite lucky that things have gone the way they have.
Why music and what does music mean to you?
So why music? It was something that I was good at early on that I enjoyed doing. In the simplest sense, that's just what it was. And then kind of to answer both questions, it meant to me a form of self-expression that made people like me and see me as more than just the little black girl. Because I've been in predominantly white communities my entire life and just kind of felt like I wasn't anyone until I sang. Suddenly, people were like, "Oh, she can sing. Oh, a beautiful voice. Oh, she does music." And it made me feel special. So it was really that feeling that propelled me to just keep doing it throughout all grade school and to it gave me sort of an identity, which is kind of a good thing and a bad thing because I've been working these days to separate it and to realize that even if I couldn't sing outside of that, I'm still a person, I'm still worthy. But I do really love getting to share myself and my soul and my heart through singing.
Why is diversity important in music education and music in general?
Diversity is important because it's kind of unfair to only have the one point of view. It's unfair not only to the people who aren't getting represented, but it's unfair to the people who are learning who had no idea that there's a whole world out there of music from other countries and other people that they have never encountered. In classical music, it tends to be Western European music. And I felt foolish when I think I got to senior year of undergrad before I took Eastern music and realized, oh yeah, there's a whole world of different types of music going on at the exact same time as all those composers we were learning about. I just assumed that they were the only ones who had music. No, everyone had music. And it broadened my horizons so much, not to mention the beginnings in Africa or in South America and all of those other places that we don't really talk about. It's inspiring to get to hear other people's music, and I think we owe it to ourselves to listen to one another. It enriches our own lives, and it makes you a better composer. If you're writing music, if you hear other styles, you can draw inspiration from that. And just it's just great to hear more music and to broaden your horizons.
Yeah, but that's interesting that you talked about like the Eastern thing because people say world music and then you learn one small kind of African drumming. Do you know what I mean? From like one little tiny place in Africa, and there's just so much, and that's great that we're doing that. But like, I mean, I think it's just that's what we do, and it's like that's our mindset from day one that that's what we do. Um, and I remember even in college, we were learning about African music, and I never thought of Egyptian music as African music. Do you know what I mean? Which Egypt's in Africa, but it's a whole different, and I don't know. And that was like a whoa moment for me because it was like African music, and we're not playing like Walk the Fat Dog on a djembe or something. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's interesting you brought that up. Um,
Yeah.
why is it important for young musicians to see an array of composers programs?
I think it starts very early on, this sort of elitism that we're fighting in the music world of thinking that there's one way to do something perfectly, which leads to like just sort of snobbiness on like perfect, perfect intonation and the way chord progression should go, the way you should write music is one way. And children that grow up in that, it starts to get ingrained that that's how you do it. Another example in Eastern music is typically in gamelan music, they actually really welcome dissonance, and it's a sign of good playing if there's a lot of dissonance. So if someone who grew up only hearing this one type of music and no diversity would go and hear theirs, they would think, oh, they're out of tune. This is a bad ensemble. Not only is that culturally inaccurate, it's extremely disrespectful. And you've caused a rift now in between these two types of musicians because one of them thinks that that's not right, and the other one thinks that they're very small-minded. How come they're not able to appreciate different types of music? So if you introduce earlier on and those children get to see all those different types of composers and different programs, their perspective is broadened, there's more appreciation. And I think that even affects on the political and the social level globally. It can even start with something like music. Just being able to appreciate other people can lead to a better world. A lot of the problems we have is just because we only know how to view things in one way, and we don't know how to accept other people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Um, I can talk on this a little bit as like a woman, but you can probably dive even deeper. Like, is it often that you see someone that looks like you programmed for you? I know in like the band world, it's the white man show,
Yep.
and I know the choir world is different. But even in like secular stuff, it's not. You don't see that. So like for girls and people of color and pretty much anyone who's not a white straight man,
Mm-hmm.
it's I don't know. Um, it's just not seen.
Yeah.
And yeah, which is interesting because if you look at a musical ensemble, that is supposed to be where everyone can come together and like you see in music, that's where you see the LGBTQ plus kids. You know what I mean? That's where you see the diverse kids, but yet we're playing Holst. And you know what I mean? Which is interesting. If you could tell educators in the US to change or add one thing to their music education curricula having to do with diversity, what would it be?
I think that every program should have that project where you've got to, because I had this assignment in one of my classes where you need to come up with a program that is diverse. You need to have um, a BIPOC composer, you need to have an Asian composer, you need to have female composers, you need to have other underrepresented composers all across your entire program just to get kids researching and finding out about different types of music. And I know how much we love our Bach and our Beethoven, and we love all of those names. And we're not saying that you should never play those again, but like it's been several hundred years at this point. People have been composing ever since. You've got to give other sounds a chance. Imagine if they did that back then and they didn't allow those composers to emerge. We have composers of all different races and demographics now that are doing amazing things that are getting swept under the rug because we keep playing the old music and it starts young. So I think that project is super important. Even just write an essay on your favorite female composer you can find, or your favorite black composer, your favorite Asian composer, your favorite Hispanic composer. those sorts of projects really need to be implemented.
Mhm. And I think on pop music, people just kind of push those things to pop music. Do you know what I
Mm,
think? Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, so I think bringing that into the ensemble side of things, because I feel
Mhm.
like when people see an ensemble, in my class last week, someone said something that I'd never thought of before. An ensemble is just a cover band. Why are we covering the same songs over and over again? No one wants to hear like the 50th Beatles cover band. What are your thoughts? And this one I'm actually very curious about. What are your thoughts on like cancel culture or not programming a piece or a composer due to a social justice issue?
Mhm. I think that it's unfair. I think that the music speaks for itself. And yes, the composer wrote it, but I think that in a way, music deserves to have a life of its own. As long as there aren't like directly very problematic things in the music. Like if a racist composer writes a version of Joy to the World, like and they don't change the words, there's nothing racist in that. I don't see a reason to suddenly never sing that version again just because of that composer. Because if we really want to go down that road, we've all done bad things. We all have a Twitter of something we said in the 10th grade that we really hope no one ever brings up. Eventually, we're all going to get canceled, and it's going to start to stifle creation so much that people are being so careful of what they're doing that we lead to just something we really don't want, and just the stifling of people's freedom to say what they want to say. Now, I'm not condoning hate crimes or the terrible things that some composers have done, but I just think that music is more than that. Music goes beyond who you are at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So the subjects in the music do need to be vetted, and you've got to go through the lyrics, and it's possible to have like a non-politically correct chord progression. I don't know. Something in their chords. I don't know. But as long as the music is not progressing a negative agenda, I think it's okay. Now, does it need to be talked about? Absolutely. If you're going to bring that music to your students, say, by the way, Wagner did such and such, and we don't condone this behavior, but this is an amazing piece of music because of. So I do think it needs to be talked about, but I think it's really, really unfair to try and use cancel culture to stop performing a composer's music. That's crossing the bar.
Like anybody, professionals carry their own prejudices. How can professionals reflect on their own biases and be sure that they're providing healthy supports for the youth that they work with?
I think it's everybody's responsibility to be learning every day or about as much as they can about what's going on in the world and different ways that they can confront their own biases. There's lots of great tests out there and articles you can read to be able to see if you've been harboring anything unknowingly that you've got to work on. One that comes to mind is I think Harvard's got this exam that shows racial preference. So you can take something like that and it can be super eye-opening if there's something there that you didn't know about, and then you can begin to read more literature or try to introduce more people in your life so that you can yourself be better at those issues. Because I think it starts from within. Once you learn those things, you can be better at implementing them to the younger people that you're teaching. And always remembering that nobody's got it perfect. Even the marginalized communities, we don't have it perfect. I say problematic things. So doing your best and being intentional about getting better and just getting as much literature as possible and listening to the children as well. You might think that you've really got something right, and then you may have a kid come up to you afterwards or just seem uncomfortable. Be humble enough to understand that you might mess something up, even if it's the most recent politically correct thing today. Like, we changed this word to this now, and someone has a problem with it. Just be open and don't beat up on yourself too much. Because again, nobody gets it all right, and it's our responsibility to show grace to each other and to be kinder to ourselves. But at the end of the day, that effort has got to be there.
And what have been some of the most exciting changes in music that you've seen with regard to diversity, and what do you hope to see in the future?
I've seen a lot of communities just making a great effort to program more composers. I'll spotlight Blake Morgan, who is the tenor in Voces 8, who had a really ongoing series of just spotlighting African American composers. He made his resources available, and in every post he had an example of their music, and a lot of people were able to get access to those documents he had and just have this very long list of all these composers they could pull from and music they could buy, to support their work as well. And that's just one example. And in the choral music communities I'm in, I've been seeing a lot of people just doing their best to admit that, hey, yeah, we've been making it the white man show for a long time, and we want to stop doing that. I think that's what I appreciate the most. Oh, yeah, this is one thing I just like to say often, that even though right now seems to be a good time to be a minority, especially for me as an African American woman, I seem to be getting a lot of opportunities right now. And I kind of have this imposter syndrome where I'm like, am I getting this gig slash this spotlight slash this or whatever because I'm the only African American woman they know right now in the music community, or because I'm good? And my answer changes every day. Sometimes I'm very confident and I'm like, no, I got into this because I'm the best. Or I'm like, wait, did they just need a black face for their ensemble? So just realize that people of color have this internal imposter syndrome and this internal battle where we're wondering, are we getting it because of our own merit or not? And we do work really hard. At least I can speak for myself. I've worked very hard. And I can recognize my own privilege and be thankful for the things that have gotten me ahead, but it's never good to ever say to anybody that they got what they got because of their race or their gender, because people have worked so hard and they've had things work in the opposite direction for so long. There are a lot of things I didn't get because I was black or because I was a woman. So if indeed maybe this time they picked me because I'm what the world is looking for, more diversity right now, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's about time things kind of worked in that favor, and maybe that's wrong. But at the end of the day, so many things have gone against us that I don't think it's right to be angry at that possibility of someone getting it because of the diversity that they offer. Because then you also have to consider the fact that diversity itself is such a huge positive factor. Yeah, I think that's great. Great questions, great dialogue.